Okay, I have a very simple card effect for you today. I suppose we could say it's a mathematical card effect because it does involve some very, very simple mathematics. Okay, so I'm just giving the cards a good wash here. Sorry about that. Cards are going off the screen here. Okay, so let's go ahead and just gather all of these up the best we can. Okay, so let's just pick all of these up without losing my piece of paper underneath. Okay, there we go. Let's square these up. We could do a riffle shuffle as well. If you were here, I could ask for that, and you could say, please do, 2 or 3 riffle shuffles. That would be just fine. Okay, so what we're going to do today is I need a couple of helper cards, and as you'll see, these are important cards relative to the narrative today, which is the rich get richer. Okay, so what I'm going to do, in fact, I'll go ahead and show you, there's one of them right there. I'll go ahead and show you what cards I'm actually choosing. Now, we wouldn't have to do that necessarily, but we can. Okay, so there we go. So, King and Queen of Diamonds. Okay, so these are going to be my little helper cards that we'll come back to in just a few minutes. Okay, so we need several cards for this effect. Now, if you were here, I would have you tell me when to stop dealing. Okay, so we're going to choose cards from the near the top, the middle, and the bottom. Okay, so let's just begin dealing, and maybe you would say stop. Okay, now let's deal from somewhere else. Right there, stop. Okay. Oop, that one dropped. Stop there. Okay, that gives us a pretty good selection of cards. That's plenty to work with. Sorry about that. The cards are having a hard time. This is a new deck, so it's sliding all over the place. Okay, so I think what we might do, we could have the helper cards face up or face down. I think I'll go ahead and have them just face down if that's okay. Okay, so we'll have them one on top and one on bottom. Okay, well, very good. Now we're going to perform something called the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Okay, so this is where I just begin dealing until you say stop. Maybe you'll say stop there. Stop there. Okay. So I'll just stop wherever you would tell me where to stop. Now, of course, you're not here, so I'm going to have to kind of guess as to where you might say stop. Okay? So this is called the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. So you just stack them in the opposite order to which they were dealt. Okay? That's all we're doing here. Okay? Let me straighten my paper because I'm OCD here. Now, from here, what we're going to do is we're going to spell king, because we had a king of diamonds, so K-I-N-G, drop the rest on top, and then we'll go ahead and just spell queen, because that was the other helper card, Q-U-E-E-N, drop the rest on top. Okay, now how would we know if something unusual has happened? Okay, so you have to realize that we started with this washed deck, this randomized deck, and then I just pulled out the king and queen of diamonds. And then we dealt out cards from the top, middle, and bottom, dictated by you, actually. And then I sandwiched that little packet that was decided by you between the king on top and the queen on bottom. Okay? And then I performed this, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first, and then I just spelled out king and then queen. Okay, so what I'm claiming is that this particular effect, it seems to always verify something that is a bit frustrating for most of us out there, namely that the rich just seem to get richer, and the rest of us just stay put or get poorer, actually. So how would we know that this effect here is kind of verifying that idiom there, the rich get richer? Well, let's just go ahead and we'll just start dealing the cards until we get to one of our helper cards. Now, that would be the king or queen of diamonds, right? Diamonds. Yeah. Where did they go? Okay, there's the king. Okay, so we haven't seen the queen yet, right? Okay, so king of diamonds, jack of diamonds. So that's kind of nice. 10 of diamonds, ace of diamonds. I think Lady Luck is smiling upon somebody here. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Look at that. The king and queen have captured a royal flush in diamonds. I think this is proof that the rich get richer. And I'll be honest, I don't know exactly why this should be the case. But for some mysterious reason, every time I perform this little test, something remarkable happens to confirm the claim that the rich just keep getting richer. Okay, so that's the effect. So let's show you how that is done. It uses some very, very simple mathematics. It's hard to even know if I should call this a mathematical card effect, but in some sense it is, just because of we're dealing with permutations here, of course. Okay, so what you need for this, in fact, I have some write-ups here. Why don't we just bring those over? There's 3 pages total, so I can show 2 at a time. So here it says place the ace of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, jack of diamonds at the top of the deck. Okay, at the top of the deck. I'm going to go ahead off to the side here, put the king and queen of diamonds back randomly into the deck. Okay, so these are placed on top. Okay, so that's the only real setup for it. Just like that. Okay, and now at this stage, what you need to do is just mix the cards to the satisfaction of the spectator, but you need to do it in such a way that you leave the top 3 cards undisturbed. Now, there's many, many ways of doing that. I did this table wash mess, right? You remember that? And the key there is just to make sure that this little clump of 3 cards, no matter where it's being moved, ends up being the one that's put on top at the end. It's the top 3 of after it's been mixed, right, with the table wash. You can also do a riffle shuffle in which you retain the top stock. Here, you're only retaining the top 3 cards, like that. Okay, so you just retain the top 3 cards, okay, like so. Okay, so anyway, there's a number of ways of doing that where the spectator feels kind of comfortable that the cards are in no particular order. Now, for the most part, that's true, except for the 3 on top, okay? And then what we did was we went through and I needed the king and queen. Now, these will just be randomly in here somewhere, right? A queen of diamonds, you can pull those out. Now, once again, you could have these face up or face down in just a moment. It really is your choice. Maybe try it both ways and see what you think. Okay, so we have these helper cards here. Maybe I'll push them way off over here. You really can't see them very well. And then what we need to do is begin dealing the cards to the table, dealing off the top 3 or 4. So we need to at least do that, because why is that? It's because those are our special cards, right? So you just start. So the key here is to explain to the spectator that you're going to be dealing the cards to the table. Now, from this point on, you're safe. So even if they jump the gun and say stop before you even gave them the option or instructions to say stop, you'll be safe. You can say, just tell me when to stop there, and then you just push off a bunch of cards, deal from the middle until they say stop. Okay, deal from near the bottom. Maybe stop there. Now, the number of cards here is not important, except for the fact that you need at least 8 of them, as I point out there. Okay, and that's not too hard to do, to get 8 cards as you're dealing those. Okay, so now the thing to realize is, where are our special cards? Well, they're at the bottom now, right? They were on top. Now they're at the bottom, reversed in order. Okay, and then what did I do from there? I simply sandwiched the king right here. In fact, maybe we'll do it. Why don't we do it face up? I think it'll help you see what's going on. And the more I think about it in an actual performance, I think it would be smart to have these face down, actually, and perform it just the way I did a moment ago. I think that's safer. because otherwise I think the spectator is going to be able to kind of see through some of the steps, which can ruin the whole effect. But here, to help you out as the performer, we'll go ahead and have them face up. Okay, so there we are, right there. And then I suggest, and it's important for this to work, that you perform a first shall be last and a last shall be first. Now there's a couple of reasons for this. This particular shuffle is a packet reversal. It just reverses the order of the cards, and we'll see that because right now the King of Diamonds is on top, and when we're done, the Queen of Diamonds will be on top. Okay. In fact, that's actually one of the reasons to maybe have those face down during the performance itself. Okay, so how this works is you just begin dealing. Now what's really nice about this is you've already set up a expectation or a pattern, or I should say a uniformity of action, where if you remember when we were dealing out cards, we kind of dealt out and said until they said stop, you know, and we dealt from the middle. Well, this is kind of similar because here we're just dealing into piles until they say stop. Deal again, maybe they say stop there, stop right there, and then the final pile. Now with this FL squared F, first shall be last, the last shall be first. You pick up the last pile first, and then stack from right to left. And as you can easily check, this is just a packet reversal. It just reverses the order of all the cards. That's all it does. And we're actually getting pretty close here to the end. Well, just think about the structure. Think about the structure of the packet here. Okay, so we have the Queen. Okay, what's over here? So just think through, you know, we reverse the order of the cards, right? Do it this way here so you can see what the heck is going on. So we'll have the Ace, 10, and Jack of Diamonds right below the Queen. That will always happen with the steps that we've performed. Well, think about the next step. We're almost done. Spell King, or I say coat. Coat stands for count out and transfer. That just means deal out that many, drop the rest on top. Okay, so think about, so we have an Ace, 10, Jack of Diamonds. So we're going to spell King. K-I-N-G. Here's our special cards. And then we drop the rest on top. Well, look what's going to happen. Right there. Look what's going to happen. Think. Okay, so already we have sandwiched between, or captured between, the King and Queen of Diamonds, the remaining cards that finish out a royal flush in diamonds. Okay, so we're almost done at this point. Okay, and then you just pick up the cards. So we spelled out King, and now we're going to spell out Queen. Well, one reason, this isn't going to harm anything, and it's one of the reasons, though, if you think about the number of cards we need, 8 is the minimum, otherwise this whole thing falls apart. And you can test that. Start with 7 cards and see what the spelling does to this performance. So now we just spell Queen. Q-U-E-E-N. Then drop the rest on top. Well, look what's happening here. We haven't lost the relationship among the Queen and King of Diamonds in that they capture the remaining cards for that royal flush, right? Nothing's been damaged. Now, one thing it does do is it moves these cards closer to kind of the middle of this packet, depending on, how many cards you dealt. But anyway, these get set on top, and you're all finished. Okay, so you're finished at this point. Okay, so the way I did it, which is just one way to do it, is I said, okay, let's look for our helper cards. Remember, the King and Queen of Diamonds would be face down at this point, right? And so you go until you find the first one, and then you maybe start a new row with that one, and then you say, I wonder what follows it. Oh, that's kind of nice. What are the chances you have the Jack of Diamonds there? Wait a second. No way. What is and then this would normally be face down. You flip it face up. completing a royal flush in diamonds. And you can even show that these remaining cards are of no special significance whatsoever relative to what we have just created here by way of the King and Queen of Diamonds. That pair of rich royalty has somehow invoked the powers of the universe to bestow upon them a perfect royal flush in diamonds. Okay, so, you can narrate this however you would like. I just came up with a very simple narration for the whole thing, a very simple story that you could use. Okay, so that's what it is. So thank you for watching, and take a look at other videos on the Hidden Structures channel.